sir.
All right, guys, we'll start. Here we go. Hold on. Welcome to Inside the 18. I'm Michael Magid, live from Hollywood, California. With me, you know her as 99 World Cup winner, Saskia Weber. Las Vegas Lights distribution goalkeeper coach king, Omar Zeenni. Solid session this morning, dude. Solid session. We got it. We got to shout that out right there.
Thank you.
And joining us as a guest panelist today, guys, we have Racing Louisville goalkeeper coach Sergio Gonzalez. Sergio, this is a treat, man. We mentioned that you were coming on the show, and then people just started sharing it left and right. So I guess you're a big deal.
I don't think so, but thank you. I appreciate you guys having me on. I'm a big fan of the show and excited to be able to talk to you guys for this episode.
I mean, honestly, man, I mean, it's really cool. I mean, we talk about this all the time, and obviously, you know, we do it ad nauseum and all that, but like just the fact that people, you know, in the league, you know, respect what we're doing. They like the discussions that we have. They feel like they're benefiting from it. It means a heck of a lot to us, you know, because, I mean, I'll be honest with you. I think we'd still be doing it anyway, even if no one was listening. I think we just need to hear our voices.
We used to, man. We gotta take people through like the early days, Mike. When Mike used to come over to my house, he would drive like 45 minutes to my house. We had brand new equipment, trying it out, and like my Wi-Fi was always shaky. We have to do like a 30 for 30 if we ever get to that point big enough.
And then I remember I got brought in, and we were at the studio. at a friend's house, a client's house, and there was like a table set up and like backdrop and everything, and I would come in like with a button up, like dressed up like I was on like Fox or ESPN or something like that, and I'd come in sweating, I like blow my hair out, I'd be like all like, and then we do clips and all this stuff, and now it's like I'm at home. Hey, what's up?
I will say, though, that one benefit of the pandemic, Sergio, and you probably can attest to this as well, too, is that, you know, even though it was obviously an unfortunate situation in so many different respects, the fact we were able to continue this going and even actually expand on it and take it to that next level with the capabilities of, you know, streaming services and conference calls and all that sort of stuff really has benefited the entire goalkeeping community, not just for our show, but other people. You know. Absolutely.
I mean, the number of goalkeeping Zooms that I was on where people were just sharing ideas or would get a different person to come in and present to a group was just awesome. And just the willingness to share and you know, be able to give feedback on things and just talk about stuff was unbelievable.
So let's talk a little bit about that for maybe some people out there who are kind of unfamiliar with you. Maybe they're just starting to get into the league, weren't kind of familiar with your background, you know, coaching in college and everything like that. Why don't you tell them a little bit about how, you know, you started out in the college game and then, you know, kind of transition into the pro game?
Yeah, so I started my coach career at Slippery Rock University in Slippery Rock, Pennsylvania.
Oh my gosh, I know that. I know where that is. Hey, I grew up in Princeton. I'm an East Coast girl. I know Slippery Rock University. Right on.
By the way, that sounds like. Go ahead.
No, I graduated college. I had no idea what I wanted to do. My coach was like, "You should go be a grad assistant." And I was like, "What's that?" And he's like, "Well, they pay for you to get your grad degree and you can coach." And I'm like, "I'll give it a go." And the only place I was looking for somebody at the time was Slippery Rock.
My favorite thing about Slippery Rock is like it's hard not to say it without laughing, and I'm sure they can't stand that, but it does sound like in like one of those 80s comedies, like a fictional university that they've created for like some teen romp.
Well, you'd wear the way they have the S, it looks a lot like the Michigan State S. So you go recruiting and people would think Michigan State, and you're like, sorry, Slippery Rock.
Just catfishing everybody.
There are a couple of those back east, I think. Some of those like fictitious name universities. So.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, that's.
So I was there for 6 seasons. I worked with the men's and women's program in the beginning, and then I worked just with the women's program as I finished up getting my master's and was a part-time assistant. I worked for Noreen Herlihy there, who's at the University of Akron now. Tremendous woman, tremendous coach. Was a great person to learn from. From there, I went to the University of Dayton, and I worked for Mike Tucker for 6 years there. and then transitioned over to be a head coach for 2 years at the New Jersey Institute of Technology, which, to go back to my Slippy Rock story, we're in NJIT gear. They thought we worked for New Jersey Transit, and we're like, no. So,
I don't think those two get that. I do.
Yeah.
I do. Which station? Which station were you at?
So realize as a head coach, you don't get to do nearly as much as what you like to do as an assistant, especially when it comes to being able to work with the goalkeeper. So went back to being an assistant coach. I was at Indiana for 6 years after that, and then had the opportunity to go over on the men's side for 2 years at Ohio State University with Brian Mazanoff. So I was there for a short period of time, ended up going back to Indiana, and then the opportunity came to join the racing staff. And it was, something I could not pass up on after 20 years in the college game. To be able to take that next step in my career and be able to be part of the league was just an awesome opportunity. So I've been here since April. So I wasn't quite with Michelle, working with Michelle when she was on the show. I joined probably about a month later.
Wow. Well, I'm hoping it was this podcast that made you that finally that was the final the nail that said, you know what, now I got to come to Louisville. I just saw her on this podcast. This is the person I want to work with. And what a phenomenal month she's had. I mean, really insane.
Just what a tremendous woman she is, and a tremendous goalkeeper, and how she's continued to be successful in this league and what she's been able to do is amazing to work with her. And also to be so willing and so open to trying different things and tweaking things and improving her game on a daily basis. For someone who's been in the league as long as she has and had the career that she has, it's amazing that, how willing she is to continue to grow and evolve. And it's been great working with her these past, 3 months.
I mean, I love what you just said right there, Sergio. And Omar, kind of throwing it back to you right now, because obviously, Sergio, as you know, Omar, this is his first year in the professional game as well, too. He could only handle 2 years in the college game. 3 years? 2 years.
I'm gonna do one more year, so 3 years. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay. So 3 years in the college game before he decided to start talking to the big boys here and everything like that. But Omar, I think one thing that you kind of brought up as well too when you kind of started out in the pro game is that immediately you recognize the fact that the reason that they're at that level is because they have that hunger to learn and keep learning, regardless of who's working with them. Yeah,
I mean, even today, our goalkeeper Alex Rando. Oh shit! She's Alex Rando for I'm sorry. You're just moving your chair around. It's like all this commotion.
What are you talking? Nobody can see me. We all see you.
No, we can. I can hear what's going on. Are you moving your desk? I don't know what you're moving. But no, yeah. Alex Rando, for example, one of our goalkeepers. I still remember like the first game he was supposed to start against Phoenix. Before practice, he was doing all these, passing, and it looked kind of bad. We're just looking at him like, why are you, you're just playing left foot, right foot in training sessions, left foot, right foot a day out before the game, and he's missing the target. He's hitting it over the top. He's, putting it too short, and it didn't look good on him. And I walked up to him. I was like, hey, look, we have a game tomorrow, and I understand that you're trying new things, but to continue having the confidence between us and the coaching staff, keep it simple. And it was like, Omar, I have these goals, every season that I want to be able to hit, 25 left-footed services, about, right around chest height in games. So throughout the season, I want to continue adding those up. And he's like, I have all these goals and aspirations for myself that I draw out. And then I was like, now it makes me realize, like you said, Mike, there are players who do the little things differently since they were younger, and there's a reason why they're good at what they do. And us as coaches, now it's a bit, I tell them, like, well, I'll facilitate that in training. We have a game tomorrow, keep it simple, but I'll continue to facilitate that. So, like, you have those guys who just kind of go, oh, wow, okay, these guys are legitimate for a reason, and they've separated themselves for a reason. And some of these guys go to college 1 or 2 years, and they separate themselves. And when they actually come to, join the MLS roster or USL roster, you get to see, okay, you're better served here developing, training almost every day versus in college where you're going in, a game every 2 days kind of thing.
Yeah. And I think, Saskia, this is something that we've brought up with you. And by the way, Sergio, feel free to step in at any time you want. But Saskia, you've brought up the fact that, it's so important to encourage people to keep doing things that have made them successful and have gotten them to the level that they're at right now, rather than trying to, put restraints on them or be negative about something that may not necessarily be the orthodox way to do it, but it's worked for them. And that's what makes them special, really.
Yeah. I mean, there's a certain amount of management that comes into dealing with pro at this level, a pro goalkeeper or a national team goalkeeper or anything, like, yes, you want to keep encouraging things, but again, you're there to reel them in, and make sure, Omar, I don't think it's a mistake to say, hey, you have a game tomorrow, and stuff like that. But I think at the same time, whatever they've done to get to the point they are, you want to reward that, and you want to champion that as well. And if you can morph that into your training sessions and into, like I said, you don't clock in and clock out. That's not how you become the best. Sorry. Like, you don't just show up to practice, clock in, clock out, and go home and play video games and do it again the next day. Like, there's so much extra that goes on to being the best. And we don't want to take that away from that mentality in any player.
Yeah. I think you offer challenges to them too, and say, hey, what do you think about this? Or have you thought about this? And I think that's something I, try to do on a daily basis, is kind of reassess it and say, have you thought about maybe your starting position a little deeper, a little higher, or, these are your strengths. How can we, hone them more? How can we allow you to utilize them more, and really kind of just ask some questions and kind of probe and prod a little bit and see how we can, tweak the little details.
Yeah. Go ahead, Omar.
No, Sergio, I just want to ask you a question, because I asked Paul Rogers and Phil Whedon a few months back, and they obviously were in the women's national team system for many years. And I asked them, when you guys transitioned to the men's pro game, was it hard to understand the characteristics of the guys there? And, were you having days where you weren't confident, a little bit nervous? And they were like, yeah, of course you have that. But at the end of the day, too, the biggest transition for us was going from the women's game to the men's game. And then, so, that was the biggest transition for us in terms of getting the guys on the same page as us. So did you ever have that kind of issue when you transitioned from the women's game to the men's game?
I didn't, I kind of looked at it as, this is goalkeeping, and kind of, what does the game present? And I don't think I coached the goal. I don't think my sessions changed at all. I think maybe the tweaks from a physical perspective, there were some things that may have changed, but I tried to look at it and tried to keep it in what I think is important for goalkeeping, and how can I help enhance these goalkeepers with what they're going to see.
Yeah, no, I agree. I mean, as you know, I trained with men my entire career. So, and Tim Mulqueen, Lodge, those guys, they never tweaked because I was a woman training with Rutgers men or training with the men. It was just goalkeeping, period. So
let me correct that. So I don't want to put any words in Phil and Paul's mouth, but no. What the case was that from the men's perspective of getting coaches that have only worked with in the women's game, I think that was their okay, I'm not coming in here to prove anything to you that I was at the women's game. You know what I'm saying? Prove something to you. It's more like you said.
And that was something for me, for sure. I think as coming in and them thinking, all right, well, this guy hasn't coached guys. He's been coaching on the women's side for a long time. And what I tried to do was just talk to them about goalkeeping and have them understand kind of what my thoughts were about things, and that, I don't have this one brush that I stroke everything the same. And I think goalkeeping's the same. I said, we're going to look at you as individuals and make you better. And this is what I think is important about goalkeeping. Now, it's going to be a little bit different for each of you individually, but these are the things to me that are going to help you be successful.
I think the big question is, what is it hard to step down a level? Oh, sorry. Just kidding. I'm just kidding, you guys. Is that what you're asking, Omar? Was it hard to go from champions to trying to make champion? I don't know. Is that the problem here? Was there a big difference? Is that the point?
No, but
how's it coaching the best in the world to the 30th? What are we gonna do?
I didn't. The thing is, I didn't bring that part up. They were the ones who said, yeah, it's just sometimes a challenge to go to the men's game when you've been in the women's game. That's what they brought up.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think it was from an experience standpoint.
It's going from pro to I don't know, D3 or something. What are you gonna do? Sorry, you walked right into that. You walked right into that.
I mean, he did walk into that, and he also was throwing people under the bus with that statement.
I wasn't throwing anything.
It wasn't me.
I was just, Sergio picked it up right where exactly what I was trying to get at.
I'm kidding.
I know.
I'm kidding.
For the record,
I will say this though, just to kind of help you out there, Omar. maybe it was a little bit of a different time. We're talking about mid 2000s, early 2000s, as opposed to now. I think the younger generation right now, Saskia, we've even discussed this on the show. When you took the UCLA gig, your club players, they said, "Oh, you're doing the men too." It never even dawned on them that you wouldn't be doing that you wouldn't be doing the men at the same time as well too, because you did both at the club.
Absolutely. Like it was an automatic from my boy goalkeepers, my young men goalkeepers to women. Oh, so you're coaching both teams. You're coaching the goalkeepers across the board. And I'm like, no, I'm just with the women and stuff. But I was actually really pleasantly surprised by that question, to be honest. I thought that was awesome. Is my connection off?
Yeah, your connection's a little bit off. You're a little like that. I don't know what this means, but that's
it's okay. It's okay. I got Omar good today, so I'm just happy about it.
That's my impression right there. Oh, hold on. We go ahead, Omar.
No, I think, for example, for me, moving from, just the question that I pose to them is just general, like when you move up a level or when you move from men's leagues or women's stuff like that, you just there's a certain confidence level from a coach where you want to obviously come in there and make sure that from the get-go, you're respected in a sense. So I think for me, even going from like the college game and now in the pro game, those guys obviously know me from my Instagram and YouTube channel because they've watched my stuff. But for me, it's more so like, okay, I went from the college game where these are the guys that I prepared. And now obviously, like we talked about earlier, these guys have separated themselves and kind of bypassed college and they're stepping into a first team role or, being the starter for a second division team like Las Vegas Lights. So for me, it's like, okay, I want to make sure that I bring something to the table that they've never seen before, when in reality, doing that, I think puts unfair pressure on yourself. I think that's where you kind of go wrong sometimes and you start trying to do too much when, like you said, Sergio, goalkeeping is goalkeeping. Try to obviously advance the individual and making sure you're bringing the best to the table every time you go out there.
Yeah. And that was what I think I tried to do when I was here. When I first got here, I sat down and had a coffee with all of our goalkeepers and just said, listen, this isn't about me and what I want and what my philosophy is. This is about you and how you want to develop and how I can help you on this journey and what can I do. And I think that's important, to go with what you're saying, Omar. You don't want to put undue pressure on yourself or go in there and make it seem like, well, this is about me and what I think about goalkeeping. At the end of the day, it's about the goalkeepers we have and how are we going to make them better. I'm a very small part of their journey, but my job is to help them grow. So what do you need? How do you see things? And this is kind of how I see things and how can we mesh this together and go.
Yeah. I was thinking about what you said. Like for me, I think we are such a community and such a union. I think it's amazing. And so even going onto the field with UCLA, and that was stepping up a level for me. Absolutely. I was just doing club and privates and stuff. And, but just even the collaboration with Juan, with the men and him saying, hey, can you hang out and watch my keepers and give me your feedback? And I said, vice versa, and they're goalkeepers, period. And I thought that, as long as we stick to that, the transition is irrelevant to me.
Yeah. Speaking of the journey right there, I don't know if you guys saw, but there was a comment that just popped up right there. The one and only Daniel Ball from Gotham FC, who said, I'd like to recognize Serge as being globally elite. He has been a huge part of my journey, and I continue to lean on him every day for advice. Sergio, I think, one thing before we kind of go into this topic right now, how massive is that? How important is that when a young professional coach, like an Omar joins the professional ranks, that maybe some of the more veteran, professional coaches, in the league really help them out and kind of get their feet, kind of under them? I
think it's all about paying it back. I was fortunate to work for Soccer Plus when, for Tony for a long time, and was able to work with Paul and Phil and Lisa Cole and John Cohn and Nate Kipp and so many other people who helped me as a young coach, that it's a responsibility, I think, for us as older members of the union to help younger coaches as they come in.
No, I totally agree with you. I was a Soccer Plus coach too. It was my first coaching gig in college, out of college, and getting to
mine too.
Getting coached with Tony, Bill Steffen, everybody. Like, are you kidding me? It was such an education for me across the board, even while I was still playing. And so, it is pay it back. Absolutely. With Blage.
That's the biggest thing I think I learned from working for soccer. It was just that it's that pay it back culture, and I think that's
Mm-hmm.
what makes the goalkeeping union so special, is that we're willing to do that. And I think everybody, and I lean on Dan probably just as much as he leans on me, and Lloyd as well. I mean, the three of us have a chat. We talk every day, and I think it's important to have people that you're comfortable bouncing ideas off of, because we're all going to go through different challenges as we go through our seasons, whether it's a club season, college season, professional season. We don't all have all the answers, and we certainly need, sounding boards and people that, can give us that feedback that we need sometimes, or that kick in the rear end we need sometimes, or even sometimes a pat on the back or a hand on the shoulder, depending on how the week is.
No, absolutely. And I don't know about you two, Mike and Omar, but I've absolutely reached out to my mentors and stuff and asked for help and asked for guidance on certain things, whether it be, I'll always reach out to you from now on, Omar, whether it be drills or this or that or the other. But yeah, and they're there for me.
I will say this, though. I think we will let Omar stay on this panel, despite the fact that he did not work at Soccer Plus, unlike all of us right here. So we will,
because he's a puppy. We would have been his coaches.
I know. He would have been.
It would have been awkward.
The Soccer Plus connection. So bad that
It
I
would have
met
been
my
awkward.
at Soccer Plus. My wife and I were staff together.
No way, really?
Yeah. Yep, we're both staff.
You guys were both staff,
and that's
Oh
how
my
we
gosh.
met. And here we are, like 20 years later. So.
Yeah, it would have been awkward, Omar. I've been like, oh, Omar, do you remember all those like pee breaks you had to take, or like, when you were crying and stuff? Like, I couldn't do it.
I will say though, for any of the young goalkeeper coaches out there, if you are like you don't have a mentor or something like that, in my opinion, what helped me is just posting on social media. For better or for worse, sometimes people would write very mean and trolly comments to kind of make you go, okay, screw this guy. Am I actually a good coach? Or there's sometimes people will give you good feedback and be like, hey, I'm criticizing, but I want to make sure that it's moving you in the right direction. So I think posting your content on social media and then having something to present to someone like Sergio or Lloyd or Dan, just like, hey, I have this video, and 5 minutes of their time, they look at it, they say, hey, there's good promise here. You could change this up. And that'll set you on your way. And I think, that's huge.
Yeah. So let's move into this topic right now, guys. After we've all been just patting each other on the back on how wonderful we are as mentors and goalkeeper coaches and all that. Guys, today's topic. I know you did. I know you did it. I'm saying it for myself. Today's topic, guys, is positional adjustments. How to create time and space with your positional adjustments. Sergio, for maybe the non-goalkeeping nerds out there who are tuning into this and they're like, we have no idea what that means. Can you break it down kind of in simple terms for people?
Yeah, I think it's creating more time to make saves is what it is, and adjusting. I think, the path of the ball, the flight of the ball, the different types of balls that are being used now and how quick they're moving. I think sometimes, in the past, I think you've seen goalkeepers be more aggressive in their positioning off their line. But I think now, especially when the ball is 16 yards and maybe deeper, being able to position yourself a little deeper in the goal to give yourself more time to see a ball and be able to react is really kind of how I look at that.
Oh,
Go ahead, Saskia.
I agree with that. I think it was because of our podcast that I had to implement that when I got to UCLA. I think growing up, we were always very aggressive off our line, very get that extra step in, get that preset in right before they take the shot. So you steal that extra yard. And then was it watching that clip, Orlando? And I realized, no, sometimes you need more time because the ball's moving so fast and at such pace and with so much movement that you need the extra time to adjust and react. By taking too big of a pre-stretch into anything, you might just get blown into the back of the net through pure pace.
But you just brought up a really good point, Saskia and Omar. I don't know if you've noticed this as well too, but a lot of times because goalkeeper coaching is evolving and the position consistently is evolving, a lot of the outfield coaches, for lack of a better term, they just haven't had the education yet. So they're giving this information that might be a little bit outdated to their goalkeepers. and it's getting a little confusing for them at the youth levels because their coach is telling them, keep coming out, keep getting big, cut off as much of the angle, yada yada, and then their goalkeeper coach is telling them to create more depth. Is that an issue you've had to deal with?
You talking about to me? To me?
Yeah. I said Omar.
Yeah.
What are you watching right now on TV? That's what I want to know.
No, I'm just listening. No, but I think at the levels that I'm at now, I think I don't have to deal with that as much anymore because obviously most of the voices that these guys have heard are, top level coaches from MLS academies. So obviously they've been, filtered through the right messaging. But I think for the younger goalkeepers that I've trained before, I think like Sergio said earlier, it's more of having a discussion with them. And when you have like an open-ended discussion of like, hey, tell me like what information you got from your coaches, how you perceive that, how you were able to like actually, use that in your game. And then we can have a conversation on that. So for example, a goalkeeper sometimes on 1v1s, they stay super, super deep. And I was like, hey, I'm driving at you and you've stayed in your goal the entire time. Yeah. And like you said, hey, my coach told me I need to stay back so I can actually, have more time to react. I'm like, that's yes, but if they're dribbling at you, you need to come and close. You need
too literal.
I was like, yeah. I said, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. However, how do you feel in those moments? They're like, well, sometimes I feel like a sitting duck. And I'm like, well, okay, so you've got the information, you've tried it. It hasn't been applicable in the way you wanted it to be, and you felt weird. So why don't you try something new? So like, again, what Sergio said, it's more of a discussion and how can we get an answer that we both kind of work towards to get you there versus like, hey, you got this information and you never really ask questions about it.
Yeah, and I think like Sergio said, every goalkeeper is different. And we talk about this constantly on the podcast. Like, Lauren's going to handle something different than Hannah, different than E, different than somebody else. Like, maybe like because of E's quickness and stuff like that, she can take a bigger pre-stretch. She can close it more because her reaction's faster and more powerful than Lauren. This is just an example. If you're watching, I'm not saying that you're slower than E. I don't want to text or anything. Just relax. It's just an example. All right. So if Lauren was slower, which we all know she isn't, then yeah, let's give yourself some more depth. And I think that again, kids are so literal, you guys out there, that they will do exactly what Omar said. Well, they told me to hold and create depth. Well, not in this situation.
Yeah, a lot of time working on back setting as well. So like, we have that pre-stretch forward, but what about the pre-stretch stepping back? Mm-hmm. And what I've found is it's such an under-trained movement. And if you look at, if you break a game down and look at our movements, the amount of times we go from, stepping forward to then having to step back and just looking at how their body shape is when they step back, how they're setting, are they prepared to even be able to deal with a shot? So we do a lot of movements where we're going from a forward movement to a backwards movement where they've got to now balance their body. They've got to keep their nose over the toes. There's got to be that set position, which I think, especially for younger goalkeepers, the earlier you can get comfortable with that, I think the better off you're going to be.
Yeah, and Sergio, I work on that all the time. Like, because we're always retreating and then resetting and with our body weight forward. And young goalkeepers out there, you have to be, even when you're moving backwards, your body weight still has to be forward. Your chest still has to be, so you can stop, set, react. If you're flat-footed on your heels, moving backwards, and you're a split second off, and to readjust, and you're done. So I always, it's a huge part of my training to work in that backward motion, to then attack a ball or then save a ball, because it's what we do a lot.
Yeah.
I have a question. Go ahead, Omar.
No. I mean, just to finish off on that point about retreating there, like one of my activations sometimes is I'll have a situation where the goalkeeper will start in the PK spot. They'll start shuffling backwards, like in small little steps. And then the ball can either be a 70-30 ball slip through, they come and collapse on it, or it gets played a little bit wider and then that person strikes the ball off a 2-touch or 1-touch. So now we're actually, giving the opportunity to retreat and recover, but also reading the game. And then obviously now you're getting the triggers of what you're seeing. So you're getting those movements, and then you realize I can go on the front foot and collapse on it, or I can drop off and make a save. So it's just like really putting all the pieces together so that I guess that final product, that final save is obviously made.
Yeah. And I think that's really important, Omar, because a lot of young kids, we're talking about young goalkeepers out there, they got caught up in retreating to try to get into position.
Yes.
And and it's more important for them to get into position and pay attention to the game. And I'll say a soccer plus saying and everything like that, it's better to be set and out of position than it is to be moving. And so when you're retreating, you still have to pay attention. So as you're trying to get back into that position, what is the ball doing? Is that person about to strike the ball? Then you have to get set. Is that person putting a 50-50 ball in or a 70-30 ball in? And then you have to change up your decision. It's not just about getting back. It's about the game that's in front of you.
Yeah, and just kind of I want to bring up some of Sergio's session design in a second right here, but something that I really wanted to bring up with you, Sergio, because I have a question about this. One issue I have, at least working at the youth level, is when it comes to any sort of retreating movements or a pre-stretch into a retreat movement, it's very stiff, it's very blocky, it's very linear. But that's not a natural flow. And I've found personally, again, everyone moves differently, that if it's a little more of a drop step, if it's a little bit more of a lateral movement, I'm in a better position to recenter myself if I need to, like Saskia was saying, if a deflection's taken or whatever type of thing.
Yeah, and I think it goes to the individual goalkeeper and kind of how they move. And I think if you even looked at our three goalkeepers here with Michelle, with Katie, and with Shelby, I think they all have a little bit different movement to their back set. But the bottom line for them is to make sure that they're balanced, like you said, and ready to be able to deal with deflections and anything that goes that way. What I try to do when I'm doing those back set sessions is almost give them an area that I don't want them to drop beyond necessarily. In an area that they want to cover, if that makes sense. So almost dropping I did this just yesterday. There was a marker that I didn't want them to I wanted them to make sure they didn't go beyond the marker, that they held their shape in front of the marker. So they were still stepping backwards, but it forced them to balance and then be able to move laterally. Because what happens, I think, when you're back setting a lot of times is you just keep moving backwards and you never kind of establish your feet in the ground and the ability to move laterally.
Yep. Agreed. 100%.
Yeah. All right, let's pull this up right here. Let's see if we can get this one to pull up right here. All right. Okay, can everyone see this right here? Whoop. Okay, good. All right, everybody can hear us? Everybody can see me and see this?
Yep.
All right, cool. Okay, so Sergio, why don't you walk us kind of through the session?
Yeah, just a really simple, we do this quite a bit, and it's just to create different scenarios for our goalkeepers and always dealing with a recovery shot afterwards. Now, sometimes it might be a half volley, sometimes it might be a ball off the ground. But what it forces, especially with the first ball in, is now that ball gets laid off, and now they have to deal with different depths. And now it's that, can I affect the ball or do I have to drop off and deal with it? And what I've found is it allows our goalkeepers to kind of figure out when they need to drop off and when they can step down the line and close, and when they need to be a little bit more disciplined, a little bit more patient. It's something we've worked with a ton. And I think you can see in some of the saves Michelle is making in some of our games where she's held a little bit, gives her more time to react. So really simple kind of setup, but I think you can create so many different scenarios and so many different talking points with the goalkeepers. I think it goes back to like you were saying, if you go back just even to this one here with Michelle, where the ball's come off the angle and she's gone beyond the post. If you're running back just a hair, so she comes in where she steals a little bit.
This one right here?
Mm-hmm.
We're right in here.
There. Yeah.
Where here, I think you just drop off and deal with it instead of coming to narrow the angle. So I think these are discussions we have after training all the time or even in the moment. So we use this type of session just to create different thought processes.
Sergio, so your recommendation, because she gets beat for a post on this.
Yep.
Right. So is that because there's, in your opinion, there's not enough depth because she's too far? So this is my point about getting beat, because you've taken too close of a pre-stretch. Like now if you are deeper, you're giving yourself more of a split second to actually, and you're still covering your near post. You're still, if you have to make a quick save, it'll still go. She's a yard deeper. Then she has a near post covered, but she gives herself a split second more time to react and not get beat. And
I think better ability to steer the ball as well. And I think the one that, to me, that I think is the toughest one is now if that player, so at the top, if they come central, but they take that touch laterally, how many goalkeepers then start to creep forward, where if they would drop back, they give themselves a much better chance of making that save. And I think it's just trying to paint. And basically with that, I allow our, the player that's receiving the ball, they dictate what goes on. Just make sure it's sharp and realistic. Cut inside, cut outside, create as many different scenarios as we can so we can talk through some of these moments. Now, we don't always talk through them right away just because don't want to stop and go all the time. But if the same picture keeps presenting itself, we'll stop and talk about it. But after training, we'll sit and watch and kind of go through. This would be one of those where you see that lateral touch there for me. And I think if this was probably about a month ago, if you see some of the more recent stuff we've done, I think you can see a little bit of change in our goalkeepers' positioning where they're playing a little bit deeper there to give themselves more time.
Yeah.
So, but I love this angle. I think, a lot of young goalkeeper coaches out there who are watching this, I think, getting it, if you have the resources to get this shot, I think this really helps paint the picture for your goalkeepers when it comes to, creating depth and everything like that. That's much more difficult to get when it's more of a static picture from an angle, right behind the goal.
Absolutely. We were lucky. We were in the stadium. I mean, the other session I gave you is more with the GoPro where we've had to kind of adjust. And even that save there, I think you saw, a little bit tighter starting position, not as far down the line, which again, like you said, Saskia, allows her to be able to respond and react better to that ball.
Yeah. No.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Omar, anything you want to add?
Yeah, and I think for me, it's just like the discussion of, okay, if that striker is the only person coming in and there's no opportunity for a cutback, then that's the only striker you're looking at. Then obviously, in my opinion, I would step up a little bit more because now that trailing leg comes into play because you don't really have to worry about a cutback scenario. So the depth necessarily isn't as important in my opinion. But if there's like a 2-on-1 situation or there's opportunities to get cut back, that position to stay back a little bit more, obviously right in front of the post, you can clear that ball around the first post, but also too, if that ball goes to the near post or the cut back the center position, you're not so vulnerable. You can actually shift back in and you can make a save. So I think again, it's just those discussions as well. Like, what's the play looking like overall?
I think the only issue I have with that is because it's a wall pass and he's striking first time, then there isn't that much time to close that space. So are you going to get caught in transition?
No, if it was a 2-touch though, like the when he took his second touch on the one that we talked about earlier. For me, I'm a very big proponent on like if I take that touch laterally or down the line, can we step up a little bit more to obviously close the angle down, but also that trailing leg depends on size as well. Like a goalkeeper who's 6'4", 6'5" could for sure be able to like get that leg out and make that save with the trailing leg. But from that really kind of acute angle, I think stepping up a little bit more, knowing that there's no opportunity to get a cutback situation is for me more beneficial. But again, that's as I was saying, it's all situational, just something that I noticed.
Of course. I want to bring up something real quickly, Sergio, because I'm loving right here what's going on right here in regards to the positional adjustment when you're in that high position right there at that angle. And this is the kind of shape that I'm talking about with this retreat right here, where it's kind of an open shape, so it's a little bit more of a staggered, diagonal drop. Yeah. But then it's a square up real quick right there. So you're able to readjust, and you're not so caught in that decision of you have to go negative because you can square back up if you need to.
Definitely. I think the big piece too is just finding that line of the ball, which I think a lot of goalkeepers forget. And, even if the ball changes just, 2 inches, the line of the ball changes 2 inches, and we've got to continue to just tweak and move on that. And I think that's really important. And yeah, I agree with you, Omar. I think, and some of the other things we do as well, and this just happens to be one picture where we'll add where now that player can attack the end line and add a second player. So I think that thought process as well, because I agree. I do think there's obviously different considerations when you're dealing with one attacker versus now when you can attack the end line. And this is something we've kind of continued to evolve as we've gone through. But I think it's allowed us to be able to deal with some situations we've come up with in our last few games pretty successfully. And Michelle having more time to make saves and seeing things a little sooner. And I give her a lot of credit as well to her positioning is, she does a really good job of studying video on a consistent basis of herself, of her opponent, and just how she needs to shape up little half steps forward, backwards, whatever it is, really to the details. And I think that's an important piece that, that's why professional goalkeepers are pros, because they look at the details. And I think for younger goalkeepers, the more you can look at how you move, look at the details of your movement, that's what's going to make you better.
Yeah. And I think like what you said, it's little movements, it's those micro movements. And I think that we've been talking about that a lot this past year on the podcast, is that these aren't major adjustments. These are micro movements, whether it's a little adjustment to your positioning, a little adjustment forward, a little adjustment back. These aren't grandiose movements. If your positioning is proper from the beginning, then as the ball moves, it's little adjustments, little.
Yeah, no, and I love the fact, Saskia, that you brought that up, because we talk about it so often on the podcast in regards to those micro adjustments, and obviously, Sergio, we talk about literalization so much on the podcast, and young goalkeepers taking things literal, and I kind of want a lot of young goalkeepers to understand the difference between a shift and an actual physical movement. Like, I think a lot of goalkeepers think that a readjustment or a repositioning is actually moving their feet and actually getting in a different spot, as opposed to just a shift of body weight and a slight adjustment of the shape of the body is just enough that you need.
Definitely. And I think, I always talk to our goalkeepers about, keep the ball in the middle of your body. If the ball line is kind of at your belly button, it puts you in a pretty good spot to start with. And then from there, you can make those little mini adjustments. But the slightest little change, that micro movement can make such a difference in your ability to respond to the ball. And I think it's something that, you have to continue to instill and continue to focus on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think, Sergio, like you said earlier too, about watching film, and I bring the goal that I got scored on when I was younger, I bring it up all the time, but that ball got squared from one side of the goal.
One when you were watching the ice cream? Okay.
No, but like I say, for example, I'm watching, I'm facing the field, and on the right side, the ball gets swung across. There have been times where sometimes I would come across way, way too slowly. And then as they shot the ball going far post, because my hips were reset, because I was coming up to kind of react to the striker moving their leg back, my hips would rise. And then one slow roller, I think against Oregon State, just trickled by me far post. Oregon State and Sac State. Damn, it happened multiple times. But watching the film, now I'm realizing, okay, on my movement, from mental recall, as I'm coming across, I need to gradually start to get lower and lower, but also too, as I come across the goal, I need to start decelerating. So if I do need to go back the other way, and I need to sweep that leg, or I need to put my feet in the ground and then push back the other way, I have the opportunity to do so. So I think that mental recall and watching the footage of yourself and other goalkeepers and seeing their mistakes or little minor differences that you can approach to your game, I think that is huge as well.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. I don't think you can't travel across a goal at the pace of the ball, period. Because if you're following ball and you're coming across the goal, the minute that ball's hit, if it's hit one time, you're already behind the shot. Your head's got to go first. Your body will follow, and then you have to decelerate, but you got to get there. If you follow the pace of the ball, it's going to beat you if it's shot.
Yeah.
Period.
I mean,
unless it hits you. Unless it hits you, which, then we all say great save, but we all know it hit you.
I've made some of
that. That's my favorite statement at practice. Like, Amanda and they'll be like, great save. And I'll be like, oh my God, Kennedy hit her with the ball.
I've made plenty of those in my time. Trust me. I will say this though, Saskia, I love what you're saying right there though, because I as arrogant as you want to be and think that you're as fast as the ball is faster than you. I'm sorry. Like, it's just faster than you. And you are. Now, the problem that happens is because of that, especially at the youth game, Sergio, and I don't know how you felt about this, working at the developmental stages, at the foundational stages, we're talking 9, 10, 11, is that the weight of the passes is so all over the place that the goalkeeper's timing of their positioning is so all over the place, because they can't figure out when to set. They can't, because their recall is like, well, I have to move that fast, but no, that kid mishit the ball, and then yada yada yada.
Definitely. I think it's important to focus on just being able to track the ball and be able to keep it in relation to your body. And I think the more you can work on that, and like I said, I use the ball line a lot as a reference when we're talking about these type of things, and keeping that ball central to your body. I think it puts you in a position where you can, regardless of the speed or how the ball is moving, at least in a spot where if you're set, you can then respond. And I think that's an important piece for young goalkeepers. And that's something that I think we talked about back at Soccer Plus, that's kind of carried all the way through for me is trying to keep that ball line as much as you can, because as simple as it sounds, I think it's something that in the moment of moving quickly is a very difficult thing to do. But the more you can kind of keep that reference point, I think it allows you to put yourself in a position to be able to make a save.
It's literally the first thing that I do when I get a 6, 7, 8 very, very foundational stages is teach them where their belly button is and how to get in with the ball line. And then everything follows from there, and the parents think it's literally like magic, especially at that age, because so much of it at that age is just staying behind the ball.
You also have to realize, like, as you progress in your goalkeeping and stuff, that you have to have already taken a snapshot of the field and what's coming at you. So you have to know if that slotted ball is coming across, where the runs are. You have to know what's going on. If you, like I say, I keep going back. If you're tracking that ball at the same pace of the ball and you don't know what's going on, you should be able to know that there's dead area coming up. You should be able to turn your head into the space, be eyes on like where the ball is going to end up. Probably. What if they dummy it, right? So it's coming, set, go, set again, right? But if you're tracking the ball, then it's a dummy, then you're another hiccup behind, and so on and so forth. So this all is a progression in goalkeeping, period.
Yeah. Omar, I apologize. I cut you off right there.
No, and I kind of want to show you guys one little clip from our game. It's not so much positional awareness from making saves. It's more like when you show for the ball and the depth between where your center backs are to where you are. And I kind of want to show you real quick just a are we
allowed to be honest on this playback, on this breakdown?
Sure. I mean, it's from the game from like 2 weeks ago. So he's gotten better at it. But for example, okay, come on. So for example, here I liked his spacing from his back line, and OC had a semi-press, usually pressed with one guy. But even this situation, we did a good job playing out of it. Good. Okay, got the ball forward. But then here, I just felt like, at times he was really, really close to his center backs. So now he's having to take this. Again, this is a good play. I don't mind it. But this last one, too, again, when you start realizing that the team's having a high press and you need to they're going to start collapsing on you with the high press, and that pass most likely is going to come to you. In my opinion, you got to start getting more comfortable dropping in a little bit deeper. So again, here, if you know that ball's going to our center back, CC, drop off to the 6, get comfortable there. So now, if anything, they draw them out even further, and you can play that ball across. But in this situation, again, within a half second, those guys are already on top of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ooh.
You see what I'm saying? So it's just for me, it's just those kind of conversations where I'm like, we talk about positional awareness, being a pessimist, understanding there's going to be opportunities where you see the same exact pattern over and over and over from the opposing team, how they're pressing, how many numbers they're pressing, what spaces are being left open. Can you bypass the first line of pressure? Things like that. So it's like, can you get to that spot early? Like we talked about with Saskia, if you know that ball is going to travel to the far post, there's no need to go through the progression of near post, central, far post. Go straight across to the far post and then be set.
Correct.
I think that's the important thing as well. No matter what you're doing, positional awareness, in my opinion, comes from being a pessimist and understanding that there are progressions and times you have to go through progressions. But if you can bypass those progressions based on the triggers that you've already seen in the game and the rhythm it's going, get there.
Yeah.
Agreed. And can we
please some time for yourself?
Can we please go back to the clip and look at the baby pools?
Wait, what?
Dude, what is
Vegas, I'm telling you, Vegas is
Put
wild.
the clip back up.
Hold on, I have to see this. We have to see this. We got to see this.
I was dying. I thought you saw my face, Mike.
No, I got to see this. We got to put this back up here.
This is everything. Look at the bottom of the screen. Look at the baby pools.
Oh my God.
You guys, it's very hot.
That was everything. I love it.
Last game we kicked off 110 degrees.
Oh my gosh, Sergio, there's a Lavender Legion. Do they have baby pools at the Louisville games?
We've got a playground in the back, which is great for the kids.
Oh my gosh. Well, August in Southern California is hot. Maybe I'll suggest it to UCLA. Oh my God, that was everything.
Angel City.
I love it. The baby pools. No, Omar, I totally agree. And that's what I was talking about. It's like, yes, we want to go through those segments and stuff. But if you know, and if you take that snapshot of the field and you know it's coming down on you, you can bypass that and get straight to the back post or get to where you need to be. Turn your head, follow, and be set on time.
I think what I liked about that clip right there, and Sergio, I don't know how you feel about this, is that it teaches the goalkeeper, to be humble, because I think there's a certain level of arrogance to play that high when they're pressing like that. If you're going to consistently do that, and you start recognizing that you don't have the time. Okay, if I keep playing this like this and they play me that ball, this dude's fast. I don't have the time. I need to be humble, and I need to respect the speed of that player, and I need to start dropping. And now I'm going to have more time to manipulate after that.
100%. I'd rather have more time on the ball and be able to play the ball I want to play than have someone racing after me, and trying to have to cut them. And I think I almost look at that almost like what we were talking about with the shot stopping perspective of like giving yourself more time to deal with things. And I think, like Omar said, recognizing that by understanding, the picture that the opponent is giving you, and how can you solve that? How can you create more time for yourself? And I think that's an important part of the decision-making process.
Absolutely.
Go ahead, Omar.
Yeah, good question for you. I mean, the example I have from this weekend is our goalkeeper had an opportunity once, multiple times to bypass that first line of pressure. But like Mike said, I don't know if it was arrogance or just being too comfortable, but he kept on trying to play that ball short. And the only chances Tacoma got were countering on those situations. Yeah. So I kind of realized, I'm like, do I step in and go yell at him, or do I just continue, because he's 20 years old, to make the mistake over and over and over? Then we discuss it at halftime. So for you, I mean, do you have any recollection of any times you've kind of, lost your cool and said something, or do you normally kind of go, this is an opportunity for them to go through the process of just kind of, getting their ego dropped down a little bit, or understanding that you need to pick up on the rhythms a lot quicker?
Yeah, and I think me 10 years ago probably would have been yelling and screaming from the side. I think now what I've learned is to have those conversations at halftime. Because I think sometimes yelling and screaming from the sideline can add to more kind of
anxiety.
And I think having those points right away, and I think the way you talk about it and the tone you have when you're talking about it at halftime can really dictate how important it is. And obviously, post match when you're doing video, I think really highlighting that. But for me, I think it's tough in the moment to really get after them, but I think you need to be able to have that conversation immediately at halftime, and get that understanding right away. It's a tough balance, because you also don't want to put yourself down a goal because they continue to do it, but at the same time, there's got to be a little bit of a learning curve for them, and maybe say, like you said, just kind of maybe knock them down off their perch a little bit, and humble them a little. But I definitely think it's a halftime discussion of, hey, you're making your job way harder.
And sometimes you get keepers, and I have a keeper like that. I had a keeper like I have to watch how I say that, but it's making hypothetically, it's, let's say, making that mistake and then trying to prove to everybody you could do it better.
Okay, there, Omar.
It's not. It was that water or vodka? What happened?
Vegas, baby, Vegas.
Vegas, baby, Vegas. My point being is that sometimes you get goalkeepers. I don't want to call it arrogance. I want to call it more that they're trying to prove themselves, in a sense like, all right, I screwed that touch up. All right, so I'm going to do the exact same thing again to prove I can do it. Yeah. Right, to everybody. So let's say they hit a ball, they take a touch and they hit a ball and it goes out of bounds. So I'm going to do the exact same thing again to prove I can hit that ball. And it's still the wrong decision, like, to do it. It's still the wrong decision to take the touch there. It's still the wrong decision not to give yourself depth. Who are you proving it to? You know what I mean? Like, what you need to prove is that you can make an adjustment from not keep making the same mistake. Not that, oh, I can actually take the guy on. Look out, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's hard in the moment to be able to do that too. Like, I think that's when that halftime or even that video, and it's like, all right, well, what are you trying to do? Like, you got to understand, this is the scenario. This is,
now they're baiting you.
Yeah, we're not asking you to be a playmaker here.
And now they're baiting you. Like, we were doing that in practice once, and Mia Fischel and Raylan just kept baiting my goalkeeper. And they were just hanging out, and she's just like, oh, I have time to take a touch. No, you don't. Oh, goal. No, I have time to take a touch. No, you don't. Goal. And I'm like, how many times when we took a water break are they going to strip you of the ball that you realize that they're just waiting? They're baiting you right now, and you're not learning. And you know me, I'm not a yeller. I did get a yellow card in the Sweet 16, but that's okay. But I'm not a yeller at my players. I'm a person that usually waits till halftime to have the discussion as well.
I think, Omar, were we watching that on the live stream? Were we like, oh, there goes Sask with the yellow card?
Yeah. Yes.
And it was he deserved it, jerk.
I think also too when we I think for me at least, knowing that these guys, the process for us is to get them from the USL to the MLS and then obviously from then and beyond. I think for me that was understanding too of like I could say something, but I feel like that in a sense would stunt his growth without giving him the full credit of maybe he has the answers himself. Obviously the game's happening, but at halftime maybe I opened the floor, which I did at halftime. I opened the floor to him. I said, what do you think about some of those touches? And then he's like, no, absolutely. There was opportunities for me to go over the top. All the notes that I had, without me like regurgitating them off my sheet of paper, he already gave them to me. So for me, it was like, okay, this guy's a smart kid. He understands what he's doing wrong. Maybe it's a little overwhelming in the moment with that, high pressure and, trying to do, like Sas said, so perfectly or trying to redeem yourself within that moment. That can kind of, infiltrate your head a little bit and mess you up. But at least I know for a fact that the conversations that we're having, he's the one steering them. And the notes that I have is exactly what he's noticing. But now it's about executing based on the information that you have versus, hey, anybody can have the information, but there's a reason why you're playing at the level that you're at because you're able to execute on that information.
Yeah. Speaking of that, I want to show this. I want to show somebody who's playing at that level right now. I want to show Michelle Betos. And I want to show this recent save that she had. Let's see here. If it's coming up right here.
Also, Saskia, if you ever say the name Mia, has to have Mia Hamm afterwards. You can't,
wait a minute though. Yes, it does, obviously. And usually when I say the name Mia, it has Mia Hamm after it. But I needed to say Mia Fischel, who, by the way, is one of the up-and-coming best players in the world. So it's okay.
Good.
It works too. But I got your note. I'm writing your note down.
I want to bring this up in regards to all these pictures that we're painting at sessions and everything like that. When it comes to the game scenario, things don't necessarily work out the way that we maybe scripted it out, in the session and everything like that. And you have to improvise and you have to be able to use what you've learned to be positionally aware. So I kind of want to show this clip right here with Betos right here. I think so what happens is the ball's kind of lost. I think so the ball was lost around against Houston around 25 or so. So she's got to come off immediately, fast approach, slow arrival, holds position right there, is set, shot is hit. Now, spill's not exactly where she wanted to steer that, so it's a little bit of a rough spill right there. But her immediate drop here, see that depth drop right there? To recreate that space, to allow her time to react to the second ball right over there is awesome, in my opinion. Sergio, I don't know if you want to walk through it since you were there. So,
yeah, and I think it's I think you see a lot of goalkeepers that sometimes will chase those rebounds, and then it's almost, and you see it a lot, then that ball just gets pushed past them. And I think one of the things, we talk about in training, I think one of the things Michelle really works on is in that recovery save, especially realizing where it is right away, dropping it into a position to be able to see the ball and then be able to react. Even though, nothing comes of this, you can see that movement is to find the line of the ball right away and put yourself in a position where you can go instead of scrambling around, maybe trying to chase that rebound or wait. It's, if you drop central, it's going to be much easier now to be able to deal with what comes from that. And I think it's a really good example from her. Also just her patience coming in here of coming and just holding her shape and not being, maybe as aggressive. I think, for me, again, this is solely my opinion. I think dropping into that block save and looking to make that foot save all the time can sometimes be an issue. And I think one of the things that we talk about a lot is let it be a byproduct of your positioning and let the situation dictate it versus you forcing it in there. And I think here, Mish does such a great job of just holding her shape there and then allowing herself to react. I think one of her super strengths is how explosive she is. And, she puts herself in good positions to be able to react and not drop into that block where
thank you.
And how she respond.
Thank you. And and we absolutely force them to make them beat you. Like instead of giving them the goal, in a sense. If you drop down into that block save, you're done right there. If she, depending on where she puts the ball. It's the same thing Michelle Akers said when we had her on. Force me to make a decision. If you're giving me the answer, That's what I'm hoping for. Are you going to keep coming at me? Fine, I'm going to tuck it by you. Are you going to go into a K save too soon? Fine, I'm going to lift it by you. But here she's forcing them to beat her with good positioning, and they're not going to. Yeah. With pressure coming on you, she doesn't have all day, so you have pressure coming on you. You have to make a decision. You have to make it quick as a forward. And if you make them beat you, try to beat you, you're more times than not going to make that save.
Yeah.
But by the way, there's something I want to bring up right there in that moment right there. And then I think a lot of young goalkeepers need to see that when they go, oh yeah, but nothing happened of that play. Well, that's because she made that drop. Because she made that drop and disallowed the opportunity for them to get a second shot on goal. That's why nothing came of that play. It wasn't just luck. Oh, she spilled the ball. Oh, she dropped it. They happened to not be able to get a play on.
But also by her dropping, it allowed her defender, who was dropped for her, to go pressure the ball, right? Mm-hmm. So with that knowledge, and whether there was communication there, I'm sure there was or not, a lot of times you'll see the defender will be the goalkeeper. The goalkeeper will start dropping, and now nobody's pressuring the shooter, and the shooter's like, boom, puts it in the corner, right? But because she dropped, it allowed the defender to pressure, right? And now the angle that shooter had was nothing. Right, the defender was taking away an angle, the goalkeeper was taking away an angle, and now it's nothing. Right, that's good. That's good organization and communication across the board. Period.
Or you see a lot of young goalkeepers wait to see what happens, and then they start to drop in. Instead of, I think, the more proactive you can be, the more you put yourself in a position to make that save. And that's an important piece too. It's not waiting to see what's going to happen. Is getting into the goal now and being able to deal with what's next.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think young goalkeepers make that mistake. What's the forward going to do with the ball? Then I'll go.
So let me ask you a question, Sergio, just for some young goalkeepers out there who are listening right now, because again, we talk about them taking things so literal. What are some scenarios? What are some examples where you actually do need to cover that space and kind of, for lack of a better term, sacrifice time in order to make yourself as big as possible versus sitting?
On that second save or the first save? Sorry, the initial save she makes.
No. I'm just talking about in generalities.
I think that longer touch. I think the cues that they give you, if there's time to. I think if you can affect the ball, then there's a reason to come out and sacrifice that space. I think also dependent upon, even in that second save, the rebound. Where does the rebound go? What does the traffic look like in front of it? You may not have enough time to drop in. You may have to go into that rebound, into a smother or into a block, dependent upon, where that rebound goes. But I think it's the big piece is kind of reading the cues and how you can affect the ball. And if you can't affect the ball, hold. Because if you go after a ball or drop into a save to sacrifice that time and you can't affect what's going to happen, I think you're putting yourself at a disadvantage where you're not going to be able to do anything. You're going to get stuck in between, or it's going to be one of those balls that beats you as you step forward. The ball trickles past you.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good point. Do we have time? How's everybody doing on time? Do we have time to play one more Mish's clips right here? Is that cool?
Yeah.
Everybody
good on that? One more thing. I think in those situations, the way I communicated to the keepers is like, we're as goalkeepers are supposed to bring control to a chaotic situation. It's like controlled chaos. And I think don't bring more panic into a panic situation. Yeah. If things are transitioning or things are happening, the team literally looks at you as the person who's going to steer the ship in the right direction versus adding to the sinking of the ship. Yeah. So I think again in those situations, again, when we talk about pressure training, we talk about situations where they need to bounce back mentally, physically, and put themselves in the best position to make a good save and get us out of those tough situations. Trying to put that, like you said, Mike, in session design, in transitional moments and all that stuff. So then it comes to this, they know that I'm not going to panic just because I see what's in front of me. And most people would sprint out and spread and go to the ground early. I know for a fact if I stay back, like Sergio's been doing in training sessions, keeping that depth, now I give myself the best chance. And I think as many times as you train that and you make those mistakes in training, it's already refined and sharpened by the time you actually are faced with it in the game.
Yeah, and on a note with that, really quick, by giving yourself some depth, by not adding chaos, I agree with you, Omar. You're also allowing your team to recover. So, I keep saying, it's not maybe it is every once in a while a mid from the 51 on 1v1, but somebody's trailing, somebody's coming, right? So if you just come hell bent and go, well, now you're making it easy. Now you're making an easy decision for them. Make them slow down. Let your team get back. Let that pressure come on the forward. That's how I feel it.
Yeah. All right, I want to bring this clip right now because I want to kind of talk about the fact of, just how the team's, system, how your shape of your team is and your physical attributes kind of affect that. So this is a clip against North Carolina. And Sergio, do you kind of want to walk us through basically what happens right here in the situation right here?
And I think this is one where
I
think what you see especially a lot of young goalkeepers, I think as that ball gets played back to the top of the box, they tend to start to creep out a little bit more.
Mm-hmm.
You use that discipline. And I'm not talking about flying off their line, but in this situation, to me, in my opinion, a step or two, and Michelle can't get to this ball because she's disciplined as the ball travels and holding her positioning.
Mm-hmm.
One, she creates more time for herself to see the ball through this crowd. And two, she gives herself more time now to react and make that save. Where I think if she's 2 or 3 steps higher, just because that natural kind of, as the ball travels forward, we travel forward, I think that pulls her just far enough away where she can't deal with the pace of the shot and the fact that it's placed into the corner. I think she creates a really good space where now she can see the ball, but she also has time to react to it.
And I want to bring up this thing right here. This, in my opinion, this is one of those dangerous balls where, chances are if you come out for that ball, if you don't get there in time, it's a goal. And that, talking about physical attributes, the fact that she's good with her reflexes, the fact that, she's quick getting low, those sorts of things, like you have to take that into play and go, you know what, if I hold, now she's not so deep that she's inside the goal. She's still a little bit creeped up, keeping her shoulder in front of the post right there. And then that way, when that save is made, she goes a little bit negative, but she still keeps the ball in front of the post.
And that's one of the things we talk a lot about. It's like, all right, we want you to drop in, but we're not talking about dropping on the goal line. We're talking about relative yard or two off the line, like especially. So we have one of our other goalkeepers, Katie Lund, who's about 6'1", and even with Kevin, her drop back in as well, it's the same thing. It's like I don't want you to go as deep, but I still want you to work back because you're creating more time for yourself. And I think Michelle does a great job of being disciplined in this too, because there is always that little kind of creep step you're going to take forward. Where here you can see how she kind of holds herself there. She creates, I think, a good amount of time to be able to see a ball coming through a crowd, which again, if you're 2 yards higher, you may see it a little later. There's a lot of bodies in front of you. I think the way the ball is played, it's difficult for her to come and get it. It's kind of coming back out across. So, tracking it, staying on that line, and then allows her to get a hand on it and at least push it wide into an area where we can defend.
Yeah.
I mean, I think this is world-class goalkeeping, in my opinion. What a final action, just the save. Oof, perfect. Omar, anything you want to add to this?
No, my mind is already going to what kind of a session design I can draw from this. Just in terms of like that ball being chipped in. And I mean, I have a deflector shield. I think most coaches have it, but putting different mannequins in different areas where, for example, if I wanted to flick it onto frame or strike it onto frame, or I can lay it off to the top of the 18 or deflect it to the top of the 18. And there's a strike there. Now, again, we're replicating this scenario per se, where there's multiple outcomes and you have to make sure that you're again, using the game in front of you as the triggers.
I think also,
go ahead, Saskia, sorry.
I think also the good example of this is look at her positioning when the ball is at the edge of the 18 being crossed. She's not too far near post, right? So she hasn't pulled herself. So like a lot of goalkeepers here, look at her positioning. It's excellent, right?
Yeah.
If she even mishits it, she's covering near post, right?
Yeah.
And we have a lot of goalkeepers that'll come too far near post in this situation. Why? Right? You've got a defender there. You can't see me pointing at my computer, but you've got a defender there. You've got another defender that's, look at the distance. So it's a micro adjustment, right? So she takes a step, she crosses it. Now, it's not a big movement. It's a micro adjustment to get herself back centered with a little bit of depth. Boom, she's in position. And that's kind of what I'm talking about, where don't pull yourself so far out of position that you have to make some massive adjustment. There's no need for it, especially in this situation. I think it's an incredible example, positioning across the board.
Yeah, and I agree. I think so many times you see, but that goalkeepers going into the near post when the ball's outside the 18. It's become one of my pet peeves.
Oh, these guys know
the goal open.
Drives me crazy.
It's such an important piece is to be able to read where that ball is going to go in that touch. And if they do get into the box, I still think you're waiting until they've penetrated in before you're sliding into that space for exactly that reason. You know, if that ball hit beyond into the middle pocket or the back pocket of the goal, you've got to be in a position where you can be effective in your movement and not have to travel 8 yards because you've pulled yourself into that near post so early.
Yeah, I give the example of our goal against Stanford. Sorry, everybody, but our goal against Stanford for the end of the season. Like, you know, so far, the Stanford goalkeeper so far past near post, and then when Raylan slots it and it comes across, her adjustment has to be so much space. There's no way that she's covering it, and you know we score the goal. But it's just like don't watch your positioning. It doesn't have to be so extreme. It doesn't.
Yep.
I think it's a great example.
And I want to bring up something right here, though, in regards to that play right there, Sergio, that I was just thinking about when Omar brought up session design right there, is that young goalkeeper coaches out there, when you're talking about painting pictures for your goalkeepers and the scenarios, you need to give every type of service that you could potentially see in the match. I can't tell you how many times I've seen a session drawn up like that in that exact same picture right there. That service is never brought in, and so their goalkeeper never learns how to deal with that situation. Mm-hmm. It's always either a little too farther out or it's more inward. But that kind of that nebulous zone, and especially lower like that, they never play those balls in, and I think it's just really important because that happens so often in games.
Absolutely. With traffic in front of you, the ball's going to dip. Mm-hmm. It's not going to be that perfect ball in your hands all the time. And I think what I try to do in our training sessions is replicate movements as much as possible in situations. And they might not be as have as many variables in terms of runners and things like that. But in terms of ball is here, ball moves there, how efficient can we be? These are the different outcomes that may come from it. And I think, you know, where that's an important piece. You know, for them to recognize what the movements need to look like and where they need to set themselves in order to make those saves.
Yeah. No, I mean, honestly, Sergio, this has been awesome, man. I think some really, 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 really good stuff, man. And I know you sent me so much stuff, only so much time. So we'll definitely have to have you back again, man. I mean,
I appreciate you guys having me on. This has been awesome. Like I said, I've been a big fan, and I know Dan said it last time when he was on, but a big thank you from the goalkeeping union as well. You know, the fact that you guys take the time and the effort to put all this together, it means a lot. I was commuting from Indiana to Kentucky for a while, and you guys were a big part of my hour and a half ride.
I love it.
It's great to be able to just sit back and hear different opinions and different thoughts. And, you know, I think you leave every episode taking a little something. And so thank you guys for all the effort and time you put into putting this together.
Oh, thanks.
You know, I mean, honestly, I mean, it means a heck of a lot, Sergio. And, you know, I mean, we've even had situations recently where we've reached out to people and, you know, either, you know, because obviously the summer's so darn busy, you know, with Saskia's got your UCLA camps going on, and obviously Angel City's starting to ramp up for next year. And then we got a project that we're working on. And then Omar's got obviously the Vegas Lights and everything. So it's very, very difficult for us to find.
You notice how he blamed everything on us, Omar.
No, and I've got comedy shows.
Sorry, we're busy.
Sorry, Mike.
No, but what I'm saying though is that, you know, so I appreciate what people like yourself, you know, saying these things. You know, I mean, you know, for us, we're trying as far, you know, because some people have been commenting like, hey, you know, you guys haven't been going as regular as you were before and stuff, and you know, we're trying our best here, guys, to create a quality product, and we'd rather give a quality product, you know, than slap something together. So you know, thank you honestly from the bottom of our heart. I don't know where I'm going with this. Okay.
You're just listening to yourself talk.
Yeah, I think I am.
I'm kidding.
Sergio, if people want to connect with you, where's the best place to reach out?
Twitter, Instagram, SGGGK77. I'm getting better with Instagram. I'm not on the damn ball level by any stretch, but I am more than happy to share sessions, ideas, thoughts. I don't put as probably as much on Instagram as some do, but I am more than happy to collaborate and chat. You know, so yeah, you can find me there, and that's it. Those are probably the two spots for me that I frequent the most.
And shout out to the once dormant Pro GK Academy session designs, which are now coming back back into full swing right now. So obviously, guys, you've checked that stuff out on Pro GK Academy _.
Omar, I have to tell you, I did purchase some of your individual session stuff during quarantine when I was looking for ideas with our
Thank you.
goalkeepers at IU. So big shout out to you. There was some good content in there, and I definitely went and picked them up. So.
Oh, dude, that was when I made that in like 2018 when I was thinner. Probably.
Oh my
god. Still able to dive.
Oh my
and all that
god.
stuff. I wanted to, but I was too lazy.
Good ideas.
You're 28, Omar.
Thank you.
So stop talking.
Well, Omar, what doesn't help is when we had, so Sergio, we're at the Angel City Crest Reveal party last week, and shout out to Angel City and Saskia for that. And both Omar and I got these massive burritos there, and I ate half. And I'm like, I can't eat the rest. I don't know what to do. And like Omar's like, wow, I got to finish it. I mean, he's like, what am I supposed to do with it? I got to finish the whole thing.
There was food.
It was good.
It was. Yeah, there was food.
Sorry.
You were too busy. You were too busy dancing. You were too
There
busy
you go.
dancing.
I was hyping up the crowd.
I know. Guys, contact at insidethe18media.com if you have a guest suggestion or a topic suggestion, or at Goalkeeper Podcast on all social media platforms. My tour schedule is being updated, guys, for comedy, so just check it out, michaelmagidcomedy.com. We'll be headlining in Orange County next Monday, July 12th at 6 o'clock at Dirty Nelly's. And that's all the time on Inside the 18, and we are out. Later, guys.